York's very own muscle building coaches, Anthony Bevilacqua and Pete Kacharian, proudly present to you New York Muscle Radio.
What's up, guys? New York Muscle Radio, episode number 167. What's really in your supplements? The real scoop on supplements. It's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, alongside my co-host, Big Pete Kacharian. And today, for today's podcast, we have coming on Derek Charlie Boy, who has been in the industry for so many years now, and he's going to give us the inside on supplements. You could hear it from someone who's been in the industry for years. And, you know, this is a big controversy right now with what's going on with all the supplements, stuff being fake, and just not being able to trust anything. So we're going to dive down deep with Derek and go over all this stuff and find out what you need to know. So if you're a new listener, welcome to the best muscle building, fat burning, get strong fitness network on the planet. And again, guys, head on over to newyorkmuscleradio.com/getjacked, JAKKED. It's our free 12-week program made specifically for you. So head on over there. It's our little thank you for you guys for being loyal listeners. Big Pete, what's up, man? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited for today's episode because we've been getting so much inquiries on nutritional topics and supplementation stuff. And with everything that's been going on with the craziness in the industry right now, with the supplement industry, I think we have to kind of set the record straight and get some good information out there as to what's in your supplements or what might not be in your supplements.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. It's really scary. I posted up something the other day on my Instagram. Someone gave me a pre-workout product to try, and it just absolutely was a horrible product. So I made a video, and I just I threw the pre-workout in the garbage pretty much. And I got some backlash on there because someone told me, like, oh, you're bashing another company. I'm fear-mongering by writing what I was writing. I was like, oh, my God, fear-mongering, you idiot. Then get off my page.
Yeah, what does that even mean? I mean, I know what it means, but it doesn't even make sense in the context of supplements. What are you making people afraid to use a supplement?
I wrote something like... only stick to the basics, and because caffeine was in the video too. Because I usually use caffeine for a pre-workout, but someone gave it to me. I was like, whatever, I'll try it, and it was just horrible every time I used it. Like I told you, it wasn't a good pre-workout, so I threw it in the garbage, and I made a video of it, and I said, just stick to the basics and stick with what you trust, and that's what they wrote. Basically, I'm fear-mongering people.
Everyone's sensitive, man. But
fucking unbelievable. Meanwhile, I know the guy who commented. He's not affiliated with the company at all. So it's like, who are you sticking up for these people? Because he works in a supplement store, so probably gets a good commission when he sells that.
Yeah, probably. That's probably one of his best sellers. he makes a good commission on that. Yeah. Well, you know what? The funny thing is, we're joking about that, but that's how this industry is pretty much run. Especially if you go to certain stores to buy your supplements, if you buy from specific resellers, you know, they'll push supplements that are garbage if they make more money pushing them. They might not actually be the best ones. And, you know, when it comes to stuff here that we put out there, we're going to tell you, you know, the truth one way or the other, whether it's good, bad, whether we make money or we don't make money. We're not going to force anything down your throats that sucks or that doesn't have what's in the label. And unfortunately, a lot of those pre-workouts and other supplements in general are like that.
The funny thing was, the kid who commented, he questioned my manufacturer. So I wrote back, I'm like, I've been with my manufacturer for 7 years. How long has that company been out? The pre-workout that I threw in the garbage? Not even close to 7 years. So sit down, kid.
Sounds about right. And you know what's even crazier? We were just talking about this too. Probably one of the biggest supplements that doesn't have or doesn't work, I'll put it that way, are these testosterone boosters that people are selling that are like these commercial advertisement testosterone boosters, you know, and especially we spoke about this in the course too about the D-aspartic acid that seems to be everywhere. People are still pushing that shit.
Wait, what course, Pete?
The Max Test course that actually just dropped today on NewYorkMuscleRadio.com. You didn't pick up your copy yet?
Oh, man. Yeah, guys, we actually just finished the course. We dropped it today, this morning, and we're doing a special deal for this week only, and it's a thank you for you guys for helping us to come up with this product. Because, again, we polled you guys, we asked you guys in the group, and basically we're doing a really, really special deal for this week only until Friday. That's when it's closed. It's going to be $27 just for the course, or for the first 3 people, because actually 3 people purchased since I sent the email out this morning. So the first 3 people who hear this and head on over there, you can pick up the course and Taxadrol for $47. That's a huge deal. So you get one of two options. You can pick up just a course for $27 or Taxadrol and the course for $47. That's a real steal again. And then come Friday, the Taxadrol is out of that deal and the course is going to go up to $67. So again, guys, if you want to make sure that you pick that up now at a huge discount, head on over to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com/maxtest and pick that up. I'm just so excited how that came, man. I can't wait for you to make the video on it too. I have to say it on the podcast so you become accountable.
Yeah. See, I knew you did that on purpose. I know. It's all right though. I'm gonna get it done, man. There's always work to be done though, and I'm happy we were able to put out that course because that's one of those courses where, people who genuinely need help will actually get help if they apply the stuff written in that course, because it's one of those things where, again, there's so much stuff that surrounds our industry where there's these quick fixes. I'll buy this D-aspartic acid or this DAA supplement. It'll raise testosterone 128%. Then a study comes out and shows that it lowers testosterone, And unfortunately, people that are suffering from issues like that need help, they'll look at that and say, wow, 128%, let me take this product. And you know what? It might even lower the testosterone, that's crazy to me,
Yeah.
I'm so glad I never took that stuff too, because I remember all the hype surrounding it. And I'm like, I know that shit doesn't work. And then a study came out and said it actually lowered it too. That's even worse.
Yeah, it's nuts. Well, actually, it's funny because, I like teaching the course the way we did it too. It was really, really cool. And for those guys who pick it up, you'll know what we're talking about. But it's funny because I actually learned some stuff on the course too. We were talking because, we off-topic things. We just would go off the cuff and just, knowledge just spews out of our mouth. About the peanut butter. I was surprised about that too, man. I had no idea. When you were mentioning the peanut butter, I was like, holy shit. I went in my house and I looked, and of course, everything was fucking loaded. So I went out this weekend and I bought some good peanut butter.
Yeah, I'm surprised you never paid attention as much as
I just, you said, I never paid attention to it.
I guess it's me being a little bit OCD in personality. I look at everything, and a while back, years ago, when I started paying attention to stuff like that, I guess that's what I did. I started reading every label, and I couldn't believe how much, soy, or any of these polyunsaturated fats or these trans fats or any bad fats are in almost anything, and if you don't pay attention and look, you'll consume a ton of them. And Anthony, unfortunately, just due to the fact that he wasn't looking at a lot of his labels, was consuming a lot of these fats and not knowingly. And again, in the course, I explained it a little bit more about how some of them are actually even hidden. And if you don't know where to look on the label for it, you might not even find it. So you really got to pay attention to your labels, guys. We always preach flexible dieting, and that absolutely should apply even if you're trying to maximize your hormones and everything like that. But that still doesn't mean anything goes in unlimited quantities where it's excessive and unnecessary. That's where you get into trouble, guys, and that's where you have to find that balance where flexible dieting should have balance, and that's still eating those clean foods but fitting in, that piece of cake or whatever it is that you want to eat that day for whatever reason. Fit it in, but don't make that the bulk of your diet. You're gonna set yourself up for failure that way.
It's so funny too because then I went out in search of good peanut butter, and I actually found good peanut butter that actually contains peanuts and salt. It's like, why can't they all just contain that? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, why even bother putting in all that other stuff? Like, why? I don't understand. This is the country we live in, I guess, huh?
You know what it is? I mean, those oils and they're used as preservatives, to help increase the shelf life, especially with the peanut butter too. Because if you just buy natural peanut butter, then you're gonna have all that liquid on top of it, and no one really likes that, and the consistency is not the same. But they put that stuff in there just to make it last longer, so it's stickier, a better consistency. But if you want the real thing, you're going to have to sacrifice that a little bit. So, you got to, there's a pro and a con to everything, and you got to just find the right balance, and depending on what your goals are and, how your body's responding to certain things you put into it, you got to pay attention to it. Don't just do things blindly.
Yep. So again, guys, for the first 3 people, because we already had 3 people pick it up, for the first 3 people that go over to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com/maxtest, you could pick up the course and Taxadrol for $47 only. And again, guys, if you're thinking about this, go act now, because by Friday it's going to be $67. And I'm actually even thinking to changing that to $97, because that is going to be that program is chock full of nuts.
Yes, just the good ones without the without the hydrogenated vegetable oil in it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, speaking of fat, actually, I found this study that I thought was super interesting. And so here, I'll read you a little gist of it. So published last week was the first human study to date to look at the effect of ketogenic versus regular dieting along resistance training and effects on body composition. So basically, they divided a group into 25 strength trained men into 2 groups, the ketogenic group and the Western diet group. After 2 weeks of the diet adaptation period, subjects started an 8-week resistance training program. After the 10 weeks, subjects in the ketogenic diet group gradually increased their carb intake in an effort to restore normal muscle glycogen levels to eliminate differences in the group between the muscle glycogen stores on lean body mass measurements via DEXA. From the graphic, you can see that after the 10 weeks, the ketogenic group lost almost double the amount of body fat and gained just over half the amount of muscle mass compared to the regular group, the regular diet group. After the week of the carb increase, the ketogenic group ended up at nearly double the lean body mass compared to the regular diet group. Alongside these changes in body composition, increases in strength and power were similar for both groups. Interestingly enough, testosterone significantly increased from weeks 1 to 11 in the ketogenic group only. So obviously this seems like a massive win for keto, but don't throw away your Vitargo just yet. I'm literally reading an article. Firstly, it's hard to believe the resistance training participants could gain muscle and lose fat to the extent they did in the 3-day per week training program. It was just over 8 weeks. Secondly, the large increase in lean body mass in the keto group are essentially due to the glycogen supercompensation, which obviously during their carb load week, subjects reported that they consumed an average of 264 carbs per day during the final week, whereas an average of 160 per day were prescribed when looking at the methods. Finally, the increase in testosterone was a 20% increase in total testosterone. Free had been unchanged in either group, and furthermore, to put this into context, D-aspartic acid had been shown to temporarily increase total testosterone by 40%, so has not jerking off for a week. Anabolic steroids is equivalent to at least 1,000.
Where did you find this from?
But listen. Anabolic steroids does the doses equivalent to at least 1,000% of the levels your body will produce naturally from the norm. So essentially, the increase can be seen in the study is meaningless when muscle hypertrophy is concerned. So basically, and there's one more note here, and this is the kicker part. On another note, the lead author of this study, Dr. Jacob Wilson, has recently come under scrutiny from a large number of scientific community for his impossible data that he's been putting out. And not surprisingly enough, Dr. Wilson is a shill for the company Pruvit, P-R-U-Vite, a company that sells keto-only products.
Yeah, I was just about to say, based on the evidence of this study, or what their conclusion, or whatever you want to call it, it sounds like it's a sponsored study by somebody promoting something ketogenic.
Let me see, I have the study right here. I don't think it's a sponsored study. Oh, come on, phone, computer. No, it's not a sponsored study, but like I said, the head guy.
He's affiliated with a ketogenic product.
Yeah.
And he also just said that D-aspartic acid increased testosterone by 40%, right?
Yeah.
But they failed to mention the study that actually showed it significantly reduced testosterone.
Yeah, but also not jerking off for a week increases to total testosterone for around 40%.
I hate blanket statements like that, because that's such a stupid statement to make, because that's going to vary from person to person, especially what their sex life is to begin with. Do you know what I'm saying? You can't make that blanket statement.
What do you jerk off,
that.
7 times a week?
Well, if it depends on the week, but you can't make a statement like that for somebody. Let's say it's like saying when you take a test, does sex increase or decrease testosterone? If a man has sex every single day, right, and he goes a day or two without it, that's going to be different than a person who only has sex once or twice a week and goes a day or two without it.
Yeah.
Same thing with all these other things they spoke about in this study. You can't make a blanket statement like that. No sex or masturbation for 2 days increases at 40%. That you just can't, because everybody's different.
Whatever, man. That's not the point, but you get the idea.
No, but I'm saying if you're gonna make that claim in the study like that, or whoever wrote this, if you're gonna make that claim, that just shows the validity of the whole study to begin with.
Yeah. So basically, anyway, going back to the study, the keto thing. That's the main gist here. The keto. So basically, they only just saw a super compensation effect from just having their carbs all in the last week. So guys, basically, bottom line is. Yeah. Keto is not magical and has nothing to do with if you want to put muscle on, you got to eat a balanced diet. That's just what it comes down to. Make sure that you have your carbs, your fat, and your protein. There's no way around that. Just stick to the basics. Don't eliminate one group. And
I was going to ask you too, because I don't know if they mentioned it. Probably not. You would have said it, but they didn't mention that the keto group, what their macronutrient breakdown would be, and then they didn't mention it for the Western diet.
Hold on.
I'm curious, because when they say the Western diet, I'm going to also assume that protein is not even adequate.
Hold on, let me see if I can pull up the whole thing here.
Because a traditional bodybuilder's diet is not a traditional Western diet, because generally most people underconsume protein to begin with. So if you have a ketogenic group, I'm going to assume that their protein intake was a little bit higher than what they would consider a Western diet, and they probably had the Western diet. The people eating the Western diet consume a low amount of protein. That's going to have a significant effect on both burning fat and building muscle as well. So that's just as important as having the two titles, ketogenic and Western, what the actual breakdown was.
Yeah, I can't get it because you have to be like a member to this thing to get the full thing. But yeah, I mean, yeah, agreed. 100%. You don't know.
A diet with carbs that's low in protein is not the same as a diet with carbs high in protein. That's just, that's a given. But, that's why you guys got to be careful when you read these studies. You got to look at every little detail about it.
Yeah, it's crazy too, and every little detail. So, and you have to go with like what works with you. Like I said, if you just stick to the basics. I always say that, stick to the basics. A little bit of carbs, a little bit of protein, a little bit of fat, eating a caloric surplus, and you'll gain muscle. It's very, very simple, but people make it so much more complicated. And then this is what I mean about this industry. I don't know Dr. Jacob Wilson from here or anywhere. I have no idea who he. I mean, I know who he is, but I don't know the guy. But it just seems it's kind of easy to kind of skew these studies a little bit more.
Absolutely.
What you want.
Absolutely.
He had to have known that you're going to have a super compensation effect by adding the carbs back in, obviously.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that ties into what we were talking about earlier with these supplement companies making these claims to go push a supplement, because you can take a study and you can fix it to work exactly how you want it to work to show one little piece of evidence. Oh, D-aspartic acid raised testosterone by 120% or whatever it is. And then you can put that out there and sell that product because one study showed it. But when there's many factors that might have contributed to that, you can't, if you have to look at the whole study, but people selling stuff will just expose that one little detail and say that's the reason for everything. Oh, look, let's sell this supplement. This is the reason. Meanwhile, they might have done 10 different things that actually helped, and D-aspartic acid might have been in the mix. Oh, D-aspartic acid was the reason, So you gotta pay attention to the studies, and you also gotta pay attention to who's putting out these studies and what their affiliation is to a product or whatever it is.
And then the other thing too, at the same token, if you believe the study and you believe the person, then you got to try the supplement yourself and see how you feel. If you realize it does nothing, then it doesn't work, clearly.
Right.
So you have to experience it for yourself too. All these studies don't mean anything. You have to see if it works for you. Other thing too.
Yeah.
All right, man. Also, I want to talk about something else. So we got a couple of new clients this week also. If you guys head on over to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com/coaching, you can pick up some coaching from us there. But I couldn't believe one of the diets that we got, and I said I have to read this on the podcast, man. This is the most ridiculous thing I have ever seen. So, and I can't believe this is even still out. So I'm gonna leave out the names here, and I'm just gonna
just give meal one. I think that's enough. We don't even need to go through the whole diet.
No, I have to get the whole diet because it's just ridiculous. So you ready?
Let's do it.
So, pre-exercise meal. 2 shots or pods of coffee with 3 teaspoons of MCT oil. So that's pre-exercise. Breakfast, choose 1. 2 eggs poached, 2 handfuls of spinach, 3 bacon, 4 slices of smoked salmon, and optional to add 1 full tomato and up to 1 cup of mushrooms.
Oh, man.
Or there's 3 whole eggs made into an omelet mixed with 2 tablespoons of cream and add in 80 grams of cooked meat and 1 cup of any vegetables. All right.
So cooked meat, it doesn't matter what type of meat it is, right?
Nah, none of them.
They're all the same, guys.
Yeah, they're all
It's meat, guys.
85 meat is the same as 99 meat.
Yeah, it's meat.
Exact.
Still meat.
All right, so wait. Morning and afternoon tea. So 1 to 2, again, choose 1. Let's read a different one here. I'll pick one from the middle here. Homemade hummus with celery and carrot sticks. So that's a morning and afternoon tea. Then lunch.
Homemade hummus, right?
Yeah.
What does that consist of?
Homemade hummus, man.
Yeah, my homemade hummus might be a lot different than your homemade hummus.
Oh, wait, you ready for this? Lunch and dinner. Choose 1. Eggplant or zucchini lasagna. This is the fucking diet, man. I'm not kidding.
Eggplant or zucchini
lasagna.
Yeah.
I'm going to read another one. Or a small sweet potato with 1 cup of homemade bolognese.
Yeah. I think people get the point here how this is ridiculous, and I don't want to the person whose diet this was, I don't want to.
I gotta read this. Hold on,
I don't want them to
read
feel bad. But wait, I just want to say one thing.
One more thing. One more thing.
All right. Relax. You got your airtime. Go ahead.
If you crave a sweet treat, have some protein bars or balls ready to go.
Yeah, that'll fix everything. But what I wanted to state was this was actually a contest prep diet, so that makes it even a little bit worse because, especially anybody who knows contest prep, you have to be so meticulous, especially the last few weeks, that you can't have all these variations in there where the macronutrients and calorie totals can be significantly different day to day depending on which meal you pick. So this diet, again, I don't want to make the person who sent us this diet feel bad. It has nothing to do with you. This is just your coach who your previous coach who sent you this diet. And, clearly things needed to be fixed. And I'm glad that they came to us because they understand. They looked at it. And I'm actually glad that they came to us because they looked at it and they questioned their diet and they questioned their coach too. And they said, like, this diet doesn't really make any sense, especially the amount of calories it is. It's very low calorie as well. And it just doesn't make any sense. And, they reached out to their coach and the coach really didn't have an answer for them. So naturally they said, okay, I have to do something. I have to switch this or I have to find somebody else to work with. And I'm glad that they questioned that because most people will get this type of diet plan and then just follow it blindly, not asking any questions. And I encourage anybody listening to this, if you guys hire a coach and you get some type of weird cookie cutter plan like that, ask your coach questions. And if they don't want to help you and they don't want to answer your questions, then they're probably not out there to actually help you. They're out there just to make money. So make sure you work with a coach that's actually going to sit there and explain it to you and break it down and change anything that needs to be changed and make it work for you. So I'm glad they came to us again. I don't want to insult them. I don't want them to feel bad. Again, I'm happy that they looked at it and questioned it. But the person who made this plan clearly didn't have, the client's best interest in mind.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind this diet so much if they were able to explain things. But, clearly, man, a small sweet potato. Dude, I know my small is different from your small. It's baggy for you when you put the thing on.
Exactly, man.
That's the difference.
It's not one size fits all, guys.
Exactly. But we had to rehash this on the podcast because I'm sure there's so many people listening to this right now who maybe have a diet similar to that. And if so, you really need to question it and, figure this out because, thank God, like you said, because for contest prep too, I can't see that getting anywhere.
Yeah, guys, if you hire a coach, just always ask them, what's the reason for this or can you explain this? Ask them those two things. And if they can't give you the reason or they can't explain it, then they probably are sending you just a generic cookie cutter plan. And there really is no reason. They just assume, okay, this is probably less than you're eating, so you're going to lose weight. And it doesn't always work like that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. All right, man, let's move on to the listener question. Guys, if you have a question you'd like us to answer, you could submit it on our website, NewYorkMuscleRadio.com/listener question. So today's question is from Ashley Cates. She said, hey, guys, I stumbled upon your podcast a few months ago after searching for interviews with Lane Norton. It was through him first that I learned about flexible dieting, reverse dieting, so I was trying to obtain as much information as possible. After listening to the episode you had with him, I was really impressed by your knowledge and experience in the fitness industry that I have been binge listening to all your episodes. I'm glad you put out frequent content because I will be said once I've listened to all of them, LOL. Anyways, my question is, do you guys drink? And if so, how do you count the macros for it? I've lost 40 pounds last year, and now I'm reverse dieting, trying to build muscle without gaining any fat. I count my macros consistently, but want to know how to fit in a glass or two of wine or beer. If I just count the calories, it's normally like 120 per drink, but the carbs are only 3 to 20 grams. So if I hit my calorie goal, then my carbs will be under, and if I hit my carb goal, then my calories will be over. I'm not sure if you covered this in another episode that I just haven't gotten to yet, but this is one of the things I'm really struggling with. Please let me know your suggestions. Thanks again for the content. Keep it up. So thank you, Ashley, and we appreciate your kind words. We are so glad, and I'm very proud of you for losing 40 pounds last year. That's a lot. And now you're reverse dieting and building some muscle. So you're listening to the best muscle building, fat burning, get strong fitness network on the planet. So keep listening, and we'll definitely steer you in the right direction. But we've answered this question so many times. We actually answered it in the course too with the Maximizing Testosterone course. But you want to take this one, big guy? I like the answer that you usually give with this question.
Yeah, for me, I probably, as the years go on, I drink less and less, so this is less of an issue for me. But generally,
man, me too.
Yeah, just less and less. But the way I drink during a dieting phase is slightly different than the way I would during a maintenance phase or a bulking phase. And I'll explain the differences. But generally, the simple rule of thumb is don't get too confused with the amount of calories, the amount of carbs, and everything like that in there, because now you have alcohol in the equation. So generally, when you're counting calories, you have protein, carbs, and fats. When you're drinking alcohol now, you have alcohol calories, which doesn't necessarily fit into protein, carbs, and fats for the amount of calories per gram. So if you want to make that fit in, the most simplest way is however many calories you consume of alcohol. So let's say you have a few drinks and it's 400 calories worth of alcohol. Let's say that's what you consume. Just take those 400 calories and divide it by either carbs and fats, or both you could even do, and then just substitute that for your carbs and fats so that the calories are the same at the end of the day. So now you ate a little bit less carbs, a little bit less fat, and filled it with alcohol, okay? Is that optimal? No, but you're not going to go over in calories. So while you're dieting, your calories are going to be the same for the rest of the day. When I'm maintaining or when I'm bulking, a lot of times I'll just create a little bit of a calorie buffer for the day and just fit those in. Maybe I'll go over a little bit. Maybe I'll go under a little bit. The main thing to know with alcohol is a lot of times the calories that you do consume from alcohol is not something to worry about as far as storing fat. The problem with that is when you have alcohol in your system, your body will actually stop metabolizing, or it'll stop focusing on metabolizing the food in your body. So until you clear out that alcohol from your system. So the problem with people gaining weight from alcohol is they drink too much alcohol, then they go home, then they binge eat, and there's still so much alcohol that their body has to process that they're not going to burn any of those calories off afterwards, and then a lot of that gets stored as fat. So if you're fitting it into your calories for the day, you're fine. Don't do it in excess, but if you just make a little calorie buffer, fit those calories in with the alcohol, you're fine. You're not going to gain weight. You're not going to lose muscle. None of that's going to happen. But the key is if you're on a low-calorie diet, especially women, you're not going to have too much to substitute for that alcohol. So you're going to want to make sure you fit it in and, balance it for the total calories of the day. That's as simple as it has to be.
Yeah, I'm looking because I have it in my fitness pal. I don't know where it is. So, she asked about how to fit it in too, so it equals up. So obviously the calories from alcohol is going to come from alcohol. And alcohol is a macronutrient, but it's not listed in my fitness pal. It's actually 7 calories per gram. So what I do is I will literally take the carbs and divide it into the total number. So in 1 ounce of wine, there's 25 calories, and I just divided that up and I have 7 carbs. So 7 carbs, that's how I kind of did it. That's how I kind of put it in. So if I have a glass of wine, it's typically 4 ounces, then that's how I get the carbs in. So I just count them for carbs, and that's how I fit it in.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. You don't need to go overboard with it. Again, if the calories balance out for the day, you're going to be okay. You're not going to be you're not going to be consuming excess calories.
Yeah. Well, Ashley, thank you again, and congrats on losing 40 pounds. It's a lot of body fat. All right, guys, we're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back with today's episode and Derek Charlie Boy.
Do you want to get the results you've always dreamed of? Do you want coaches that genuinely care, are professional, and get back to you in a timely manner? Do you want to be stronger, healthier, and look better naked? Then let me tell you, New York Muscle Radio is definitely your answer. Since working with them, I can hardly believe the results.
They coached me through a post-contest reverse diet and all the way through to an off-season strength program.
These two fitness geniuses have pushed me outside of my comfort zone, and in the process, I have been able to make big jumps on all of my major lifts.
In 14 weeks, I added 100 pounds to my powerlifting total and smashed my first meet.
Since working with them, I've added 55 pounds to my squat, 50 pounds to my deadlift, and 20 pounds to my bench press.
And in 12 weeks, I dropped over 10 pounds of body fat and added over 20 pounds to all my lifts.
I have never had as amazing of glutes as I have training with them. So I can say, no matter what your goals are, you're guaranteed to be stronger, healthier, and let's face it, better looking if Pete and Anthony are your coaches.
So if you are tuning in to listen and learn from the huge array of knowledge these two have, or if you want to hire them as your coaches, you will not be disappointed.
New York Muscle Radio is the best in the business.
You heard it from our New York Muscle Radio clients. Do you want to join our team and reach your fitness goals? Visit NewYorkMuscleRadio.com for all our coaching programs.
But I'll tell you what, when I'm done, my biceps are humongous. Humongous. Like that, bang!
My name is Anthony Bevilacqua, and I'm the host of New York Muscle Radio podcast. My arms have been a weak point for years. When I started training, my arms measured 11 inches. Even after many years of hardcore training, nothing would get them to grow. With the help of my co-host, Big Pete, we set out on a mission to gain 1 solid inch to my arms in 12 weeks.
In the greatest experiment of all.
12 weeks later, this program finally helped me get 18-inch arms. The 12-week arm experiment, the ultimate arm growth program, ebook, the audio book, and the workout video. Pick up your copy now on NewYorkMuscleRadio.com.
Hey, great coffee.
Doesn't it taste good as Fresh Perk?
Better.
Better than those girls make at the office?
Honey, their coffee can't hold a candle to yours.
Caffeine, the world's only instant coffee that's fortified with muscle-building protein. Visit buyproteincoffee.com now.
Damn.
Nice, Pete.
What?
I saw you checking out that girl's butt.
What? I was just checking out her yoga pants.
Pete.
I was thinking you'd look really good in yoga pants.
Uh-huh.
I was like trying to check out what brand it was. Like I was looking at her form on deadlifts. They were all messed up.
Do you think she has a nicer butt than me?
Well, it definitely doesn't look like a pancake.
Did you just call my butt a pancake?
Well, I mean...
What can I do?
You gotta try New York Muscle Radio's Glutylicious program.
Glutylicious?
Yeah, you'll finally get a celebrity booty, like all the other girls following the program.
Fine, I'll do it. But don't get jealous when other guys check out my glutylicious ass.
Glutylicious, your guide to getting a celebrity booty in 12 weeks. Now available exclusively at NewYorkMuscleRadio.com.
What's up, New York Muscle Radio listeners? It's your co-host, Big Pete Kacharian, and I'm glad you're all listening. Put down that tilapia and asparagus. Learn how to get bigger, stronger, and leaner eating what you want. Pick up a copy of Cracking the Flexible Dieting Code exclusively at NewYorkMuscleRadio.com. But for now, let's get to the show.
All right, guys, we're back. Today we have a behind-the-scenes look at what happens in the supplement industry. Today we have here with us Derek Charlie Boy, who worked in the supplement industry for a long time. Derek has seen the back end and knows what it takes to build a multi-million-dollar brand in this industry. Our main goal with this episode is to teach you guys what goes into making a supplement and what you can do to ensure what you're taking is the real deal. Derek, what's up, man? We're glad to have you back on this podcast. The last time you were here was episode 97, and we talked about how to reach your maximum potential in bodybuilding. So it's almost 90 episodes later.
Oh, wow. I didn't know it was that many episodes. That's crazy. But yeah, I'm doing great. Happy to be back on.
Yeah, man. So tell everybody what you got going on. This is like a perfect time for this supplement to come podcast to come out because we have your product that just launched. So let everyone know about it now before we start because this is like perfect. This is going to talk about your journey and everything.
Yeah, I officially launched my own supplement company, PR Breaker, about a month ago and released my first product, Materia, which is a pre-workout. As you said, I worked in the supplement industry for over 12 years. So I saw pretty much everything on both sides of the fence, consumer base and behind the scenes in the industry. I think where I differ from a lot of people who start their own companies or who do run companies is I started as a consumer. I started lifting weights when I was 15 years old and buying supplements, competing in bodybuilding when I was 18 years old. And it wasn't until I was in my early 20s I actually got into the industry. So I think for someone who truly loves fitness and who was on the other side, being a consumer first, I bring a completely different viewpoint to the industry than someone who simply views the supplement industry as a way to make money. So yeah, just launched my own company. Things are going well. And I'm just super excited to give consumers a legitimate product because that's definitely something that's lacking nowadays.
It's funny you mentioned like when you started bodybuilding 15, 18. What was like some of the supplements that you used back then? Because it's totally different now.
Back then, like if you were on creatine and dextrose, you had it made. Like that was like the big deal.
that was the stack in the ads that's going to give you all those gains, 972% gains.
Yep. Well, it's so funny. It's like just something so simple as creatine monohydrate and dextrose, a simple sugar. Like that was like groundbreaking then.
You know what's funny about? I just want to mention. You know what's so funny about dextrose too? At least at one point in time, when it was used for bodybuilding purposes, it was actually kind of hard to find. Like it wasn't like you could just get it anywhere.
So I got a funny story about that. When I was 16 years old, I couldn't find it anywhere, and I actually found it at a wine and beer making store.
Yeah, that's very similar to my story. I had to go to a sprinkle making company.
Yeah, so I walked in, as a 16-year-old buying like a couple pounds of dextrose, and the people behind the counter are like, what are you making with this? And I was like, kind of like my own homemade Gatorade. They're like, oh, all right.
This is going to get me huge, guys. And you probably walked out of the store so excited thinking you're going to get 50 pounds of muscle.
That was the first time I'd ever used dextrose. And yeah, I was like, this is it. I got it now.
I admit that was like similar to my first time buying a supplement too. It was like I was using Celtec when Celtec first came out. I was like, I'll never forget. I was 14 years old. I couldn't buy it because you had to be 18 to buy it, and my dad had to like go in the store and go buy it for me. It was insane. But I remember walking away with like the tub in my hand, like, wow, this is gonna be it for me. That's it.
Yeah. So back then I was using Optimum Nutrition's whey, creatine monohydrate, and dextrose post workout. That was it.
It's funny how the protein powder has also evolved during the years. The protein powder, I remember when I first started, was terrible.
Oh, dude. The first chocolate protein powder I had was disgusting. And that's funny, like you taste protein powders nowadays and they taste pretty good, and people will complain if they're mediocre.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
This isn't that good. And it's like, man, if you only knew. It's like, flavoring has come such a long way.
It's so true. I remember the first time I had whey protein, I was like, oh, this is really terrible. And I bought one brand, and literally it tasted like bark, like tree bark. That's how bad it was.
And I don't even think it was instantized back then. Nowadays, they instatize it so it mixes better. Back then, I don't even think it mixed well. So you'd
clumps.
Yeah, you'd mix it. Oh, I think I was mixing it with a spoon back then, too. So, you're mixing your scoop with a spoon and water, and it's just clumpy and sits on the top, and you just drink it.
Wasn't also back then like those other supplements? What were they that got banned?
There was something called like Hot Stuff or something weird.
There was all that stuff that came out. Those hormone, the stuff that then pro hormones replaced it. I don't remember what it was called.
Yeah. Man, what was out back then? I don't even remember.
Yeah, there was all that like our methyl test. What was it called, Pete? That stuff back then. We were talking about the other day.
Oh, that was the M1T, I believe, but that was that was actually a pro hormone, right?
M1T was like 2003, 2004.
Oh, so that was. I'm thinking of because I remember I used to see the ads for it always in the magazines. AD, 1AD.
Yeah, 1AD. What did they? Man, this so long ago. Yeah, they had like pro hormones, and then 1AD came out, which was kind of like actually a steroid. And then like methyl 1 test came out after that, and that's a straight up steroid, like no questions asked.
Yeah.
Not even a pro hormone.
It's funny how the industry has come so full circle around. Like all that stuff now is banned. Like back then, like you said, the groundbreaking thing was creatine and dextrose. So it's just so funny how everything has came around.
Yep. Well, and back then too, when like methyl 1 test and all that first came out, the supplement owners at the stores would keep it like under their desk. So, someone would come in and looking to buy something, and then like they'd look around, like making sure no one was watching, be like, hey man, you want to try something strong? And you're like, yeah, sure. What do you got? They're like, I got this stuff. And but they wouldn't, they would sell it to whoever and not even tell them what it really was. So, people are taking methyl 1 test thinking it's just some random supplement. Well, it's like, no, you're taking an oral steroid.
How did they manage to get those on the market in the first place? I know everything now, like even now, there's some stuff that just keeps regularly getting pulled off. It's on a very short period of time.
Well, with a lot of the pro hormones and pro steroids, whatever you want to call them, they were compounds that like pharmaceutical companies never wanted. Like all the steroids that got banned were stuff that was used for medical reasons or pursued by pharmaceutical companies. And all these other like garbage hormones, like no one wanted them. So it's like nothing ever happened with them. So what people would do is, these chemists or, chemists in China would find these random just hormones, compounds, and like, this has good anabolic activity, blah, blah, blah. It's not banned because no one ever did anything with it. So then they would synthesize it and start selling it.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just one of those things where it was not on the banned list, So, I mean, technically they could sell it, but eventually the FDA is going to catch on.
Well, we all know that supplements have to be approved in the FDA. So what are some of the requirements nowadays to produce a supplement?
So the FDA sets a group of guidelines and rules called GMP, or Good Manufacturing Practices. And they're just like, it's a huge, huge list of guidelines that manufacturers have to follow, the people that label and sell supplements have to follow. And it starts from the beginning, like, sourcing ingredients, testing ingredients, how those ingredients are stored, how the products are manufactured in the machines, what type of bottles they're held in, how the labels are applied, what's listed on the labels. So there's a lot of stuff that goes, what companies are supposed to be doing. A lot of times companies and manufacturers, so there's guidelines and rules that the manufacturers themselves have to follow, the people that are actually putting the powder into the bottles. And then there's guidelines that the companies are selling the products have to follow. So, I mean, the GMP guidelines really, really start at the manufacturing level. So the people who are blending the ingredients together and putting them in the bottles for companies. Mm-hmm. So from that standpoint, and this is kind of hard for a consumer to know, because consumers don't know where companies manufacture their products. But it's like, ideally, you want to choose, use supplements from companies that use reputable manufacturers. But I mean, that's probably the one part where consumers aren't going to be able to see where exactly these companies are getting their products made. Yeah,
and that usually says it on the bottle, correct?
A lot of companies
it's supposed to, I mean.
Well, a lot of companies will say, produced in a manufacturer by, complying with GMC guidelines, but putting that on the label means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Like the FDA actually frowns upon that, because you should be following the GMP guidelines. Like, that should not be a promotional thing. Like, that should just be a given. But companies will say, hey, we're producing a GMP manufacturer. That doesn't mean anything. So, I mean, and you can also say whatever you want. I mean, you can say it's produced. I mean, all manufacturing facilities will say they're GMP compliant. But go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, but the FDA usually audits manufacturers, and they'll score them and give them these audit reviews. And as a company, you can go to these manufacturers and ask to see their audits, to see how they scored. So, I mean, there's a lot of shady manufacturers out there. Basically, any manufacturer that will produce these pro hormones or pro steroids or all this stuff, you would not want to buy products from. They're not following the guidelines that the FDA sets forth.
Yeah, that's something that me and Pete, I know you're already going to say this, but we always talk about this. It's like you may be thinking you're getting a pro hormone or a SARM, but you're probably just getting an oral steroid.
Yeah, well, and I know we kind of want to talk about this later, but I've heard stories, companies that are selling these SARMs or whatever that actually legitimately contain steroids, and those companies know it, and they continue to sell it. Like, they straight up know they're selling steroids as SARMs, or like a non-hormonal test booster or whatever they want to call it, but they are straight up selling steroids. So that's called like misbranding a supplement, when it contains a supplement or drug not listed on the label. So they're selling misbranded supplements to consumers, and they don't care. They're just out to make, a quick buck.
That's insane. Well, I want to talk a little bit about deceiving the customers in a little bit, so we'll come back to that. So we'll kind of leave that story hanging there. So let's kind of roll back a little bit. So, I mean, we've created products, and you have created product, but since you have so much of a background in this, we're going to use you as an example. So you decided to come out with a pre-workout product. Tell us, like, from start to finish, kind of how that whole process went out, because I think some people just think, oh, I want to start a supplement company, and they just, okay, this is what I want, and that's it. So kind of explain your rationale behind your product and how you got it. I want to hear the story behind it, the backstory, and why a pre-workout. Actually, I'm curious why you chose a pre-workout.
Yeah, so my specific formula, the ingredients, I've been using that exact same formula for about 3 to 5 years. The only difference was I was using 6 grams of citrulline malate instead of 8. And the reason why I bumped it up to 8 grams is because there's 3 recent studies that came out showing that 8 grams of citrulline malate increased repetitions performed on both upper and lower body exercises. But anyways, so I had my formula. I've been using it for a while. And I wanted to give, well, I think the pre-workout market specifically is garbage. Like, there are so many underdosed products on the market, it's ridiculous. Or every pre-workout is like 100% stimulant based. So I wanted to give consumers a legitimate pre-workout that truly increased performance and gave them energy and focus without shoving 5 stimulants down their throats. So it was seeing a gap in the industry and trying to fill it.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, like, whenever you're creating a product, the first thing you're going to decide is the formula, the ingredients you want to use in the product. The next step is to actually source those ingredients or decide what sources you want to use in your product. For example, with creatine monohydrate, you can use just basic generic creatine monohydrate, or you can use the trademark branded CreaPure creatine monohydrate. The difference is the CreaPure creatine monohydrate, it costs twice as much as the generic creatine monohydrate. But, and I learned this years back, before I started sourcing and purchasing ingredients for the company I worked for previously, I thought all ingredients were the same. I thought creatine was creatine no matter where it came from. But if you get like a cheap generic creatine monohydrate from China, just like a, bottom of the barrel creatine monohydrate, it stinks. Like, if you smell the powder, it stinks. It smells bad. The texture is bad. It's a little bit more coarse. Then if you smell the creatine monohydrate, like, it has no smell, it has no odor. It's a very fine crystalline powder, so it mixes better into solution. So it's like there is quite a difference as far as the quality of ingredients between sources. So that's the second step. You make your formula, and then you choose the sources or the suppliers for those ingredients. The next thing would be you take your formula to a manufacturer. And at that point, you would work with them with your ingredient. So you can either purchase the ingredients yourself and send them to the manufacturer, or you can have the manufacturer purchase them and create a turnkey product, meaning you're not purchasing any of the ingredients, they're doing it directly for you. So once you set up the formula with the manufacturer, you then work on the flavoring, which you can either do yourself or hire someone to do for you. From that point, you'll work with the manufacturer on establishing specs. And so say like you have 500 or 5,000 milligrams of an ingredient. Oh, okay. See, there's so much stuff in this, dude. Like, I could write a book on this.
Well, no, I want to hear it. That's what I'm saying. Because this is like I said, you've been in this industry for so long on the back end, and no one knows what it takes to actually go into making a supplement. And it's different when people hear it from you versus us.
I think it'll help if we use examples for explaining a lot of stuff. So you take your formula to the manufacturer. I did a little bit of consulting after I left Scivation for a couple companies, and these are like decent sized companies, probably like mid-level companies. And they honestly had like, they just so many like holes in everything they were doing. So like when you set an ingredient dosage, say 5,000 milligrams per serving, ideally you want to build in an overage to make sure that that dosage is hit. And so if you have 5,000 milligrams per serving and there's no overage built in, chances are on a scoop by scoop basis, you may not be at that dosage. So it's like you build in a little bit of overage to ensure that you hit that quantity in every serving. So basically, once you give your manufacturer your formula, you set up your overages, you set up your specs, like the moisture level you want to hit or you want to stay under, microbial levels, heavy metal levels, all sorts of stuff like that to basically ensure the purity of the product. And that's something a lot of companies don't do either. They basically just make a product and whatever it tests out at. And that goes back to sourcing ingredients. Different ingredient suppliers, again, it goes back to the quality of ingredients. One supplier may give you an ingredient that has a higher moisture level than another supplier, and that becomes an issue when the powder sits in the bottle. If you're using ingredients with a high moisture level, the powder has a greater chance to clump up or deteriorate in the bottle. So again, ingredient quality and sourcing is huge. So
actually, I'm gonna cut you off right there. So if because I know I've heard this story before too. If you open, and I've seen it myself, if you open up a supplement container and you see clumps in the container, usually that means they used a cheap ingredient and it went bad.
It could be a cheap ingredient. It could be an ingredient that's hygroscopic or hydroscopic that draws water to it. It could be that those ingredients just tend to clump and they didn't have any flow agents in there, like silicone dioxide, to keep it the powder separate. It could be multiple things. It could be high humidity levels during the manufacturing process. Some manufacturers aren't climate controlled, or they're not humidity controlled. They'll just control the temperature. And if there's high humidity, that means moisture is going to get into the powder as it's being mixed or as it's being put in the bottles, which can lead to clumping. But when you see like that clumping or color changing in the product or in the powders, that means that actual chemical reactions are going on. So yeah, the powder, the components, the chemicals are changing in the bottle. So that's a big red flag.
Yeah, you see, guys, so there's not just, oh, here's my supplement, that's it. There's a lot that goes into this. I mean, I'm sure Derek can dive down deep more into what goes into it. But so, okay, you go to the manufacturer, you tell them the ingredients you want, you source your products from your ingredients from wherever you want to source them from. What happens next?
At that point, once the flavor's done, you get all the paperwork in order, you get all the specs in order, you submit your PO, and then the blending process starts. So then when a manufacturer receives the ingredients that it's supposed to use in your product, ideally they should test those ingredients before they even go into the bottle.
Exactly. A good manufacturer will do that.
Yes. And a lot of manufacturers don't do that. They'll do the bare minimum, which is like, and this is even if they do it, but an identity test just to prove that the powder they have is a compound they want. So they can do a cheap test to determine if that creatine powder is indeed creatine. But it doesn't test like the purity of that powder. So once they test all the ingredients, they'll blend it all together, and then ideally they'll do some internal testing like on microbials, heavy metals, and all that stuff. Ideally, you want to send it to a third party, someone who's not involved in the manufacturing process, to ensure that that product actually contains what it's supposed to contain. And that's another thing that a lot of companies don't do. They'll take the manufacturer's word that the product contains what it contains. But again, that's ideally you should be getting a third-party test to ensure that your product contains both the ingredients in the quantities you want and in the purity level, the heavy metal levels, the microbials, all that stuff, to make sure that it's indeed what it's supposed to be. So you can. It's crazy because, again, even companies that are, like decent-sized companies are going to these low-level manufacturers and doing no testing, no quality control, manufacturing products and sending out to the consumers without caring. And I don't know. With some companies, I honestly don't know if it's not caring or they just aren't informed enough. And if they aren't informed enough, they shouldn't be selling products, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I agree. I mean, GNC and all these supplements that are in like the regular shelves, like you go in like a Walmart or a Target or whatever, and there's supplements on the counter. I actually just found an article the other day that said most of that stuff is fake and it's not real. Like even GNC brands, like you can't even go into the store and buy regular vitamins. I'm not even talking about like protein powder. Regular vitamins are not meeting label claims, and it's really, really scary what goes on. So that's why I was like, I got to have Derek on here to explain to people what goes into when you have a good supplement line, what goes into it, because it's so important. And like we said, I pay extra for a certificate of analysis to make sure that everything is good. I mean, you do the same thing, and I think that's what's going to separate us from the other companies because, nowadays people are a lot smarter. They listen to things like this and they'll say, okay, well, let me check where my product's from. All these big companies, and I'm sure you could probably name a few that do produce fake products.
Yeah. Yeah, and the one thing I would say is a lot of like the really, really big companies are probably the best companies to buy from, because the bigger you are, the bigger target you have on your back from the FDA. So really, you can't afford not to follow GMP guidelines and not to test your products, because you cannot afford to get hit with a violation from them or get a lawsuit or something like that. So yeah,
I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to say. I mean, I don't know, but I read an article that said like Optimum Nutrition got flagged for their protein spiking, and that's a pretty big brand, I would think. I don't know how true those articles are, but I don't know.
I haven't heard them getting flagged, and I'd be surprised if they were.
I got to see if I can find it and send it to you.
Yeah, if you can send it to me, because I would honestly be surprised if they were not meeting label claims.
I gotta see it. I'm just curious. I'm gonna type it in, but while we talk, I'm gonna look it up. But I'm pretty sure that that's what I saw, and that was a big company. Like another one was Cellucor. That was another big company.
Yeah. Well, and in those instances, I don't know what's going on with them, but it could be a thing where if and this goes back to choosing ingredients, you cannot take the word of the ingredient supplier that what you're getting is actually what you want, which is why you need to do pre-manufacturing testing.
Yeah, agreed. So now what happens? So now you get everything done. You got the product. The product finally comes to you. So now, just so people don't underestimate this. Okay, I make a product. Here's my product. Talk about the next step. And this is the hardest part in any business, because this is where what happens when you actually launch a product. So now you got your pre-workout to your house. What happens next, Derek? I want to hear the whole process, because again, you've done this with other companies. So now you figured out what formula you want to use for the product. Now you get the product. What happens next?
Yeah, well, I mean, my whole marketing campaign is I'm not a big company with a ton of money. I can't create flashy ads and use all this crazy marketing. My whole goal is to educate the consumer and make them make their own choice on what to buy. And honestly, because I did put so much time and effort into my product, and I did make it based on scientific literature, proper dosing of ingredients that are backed by research, I'm basically trying to educate the consumer to show them what they should be looking for and the red flags in other companies, which will in turn basically make them come to my company when they realize I'm doing everything I should be doing. So it's like I'm going for a lot of companies want someone to buy their product once and they don't care if you buy it ever again. They want to get the newbie consumer, they'll buy their product, and if they can do that with millions of people, they'll make their money. I'm targeting the educated consumer who knows about ingredients, who knows about dosages, who wants a high quality, trustworthy product. I'm looking for someone who will see my product and say, I'm using this pre-workout for as long as I can because I believe in it. And that's honestly what's been happening. I've had people that are ordering, materia by 4 to 6 bottles at a time. So it's like consumers are seeing, they see a legitimate product with the ingredients that should be in the products and the dosages they should be in, and they're responding well by purchasing it. So, I mean, I don't do any flashy marketing. I do a little marketing on social media. I write articles on my website. And basically, like I said, I'm just trying to help educate consumers on, the proper way to do things and what they should be on the lookout not to buy in the supplement industry.
Yeah. I pulled up, I was actually able to find it, and they met label claims, but there was a protein contamination. Said that there was 15 heavy metals in their protein powder. That's what it was with them.
Yeah. And there's going to be heavy metals in everything. It's just a matter of if the level of those heavy metals is dangerous or high.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking of that, can you actually talk a little more about that? Because I think a lot of people hear that term and they don't really understand exactly what that means. They hear it a lot.
Yeah, so like the heavy metals, like the main one everyone always talks about and tests is lead. And there's a guideline specifically in California called Prop 65, which states, if your product cannot contain above these levels of heavy metals or they cannot be sold. And really, for the most part, like heavy metal levels in supplements is not an issue. The only time it really becomes an issue is things like herbs, because they're usually grown in soil, so they're going to have a higher heavy metal content than a synthetic ingredient. So when you're using and manufacturing herbs, sourcing becomes important, that you're finding herb sources that aren't too high in heavy metals. But outside of that, honestly, it's really not an issue.
All right, so now let's get to the meat and potatoes of this, because this is the part that the consumers listening to this are really going to want to know. So what are some ways that supplement companies deceive the customers when it comes to label claims, and why? What should the consumer look for in their product to actually know it is legit? Because this is the question. So we're hearing all this stuff that you went through and what we go through for our products to put them out there. What should anyone listening to this right now look for in their product to make sure that it actually is what it is?
Yeah, the number one thing I would tell consumers to be on the lookout for is proprietary blends. If a product has a proprietary blend, you should not buy it. I don't care what brand it's from. The reason being is the company can hide the dosages of those ingredients. So you do not know, as a consumer, you do not know what dosages each ingredient is being delivered in. So you don't know if you're getting the adequate, study, research substantiated dosages or not. And in my opinion, if companies are using the dosages used in studies, which is the dosages they should be using, they have no reason to hide it on the label. If 12 studies say you should use 2 grams of this ingredient, if I'm using those 2 grams, I want people to know. It's like I would promote the fact that I'm using the studies used in, or the dosage used in studies. So if companies are hiding their dosages, that tells me they're not using those dosages. So that's number one, is proprietary blends. Like I don't care what brand it is, how reputable they are. If they're using a proprietary blend, do not buy the product. Another way companies try to trick or impress consumers is to use a ton of ingredients. Like there's no need to have 30 ingredients in a pre-workout product. And chances are, if a pre-workout does contain 30 ingredients, there's no way all of those ingredients are going to be properly dosed. Just from a sheer cost point, I mean, cost to properly dose 30 ingredients would be, it would price the product out of the market. But companies will do that to try to impress consumers, so consumers are just in awe of the sheer amount of ingredients. But that goes back, quality over quantity. You are better off taking less ingredients in their proper dosage than more ingredients in an underdosed dosage.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? So how do they know?
I got plenty.
Oh, go ahead, man. Keep going, because I'm curious. Because if I go to the supplement store and I want to buy something, I want to know. Okay, how do I know if this is legit?
Yeah.
I mean, actually, to back this up a little bit, the other day we found out that Subway's chicken was fake, and a little bit of my heart broke. I found out about that, but
I almost got Subway the day I saw that. I was coming home from the gym. I didn't have any food cooked. I needed to go grocery shopping. And I was like, I haven't had Subway in a long time. There's one right by my house. I'm just going to get Subway. And then I was like, nah, I'm just going to go to the grocery store first, whatever. And then that afternoon, I saw that article.
Yeah, I know. It's like a little bit of my heart broke, because it's such a macro-friendly thing to eat. It's got a good amount of protein, good amount of carbs, decent amount of fat. So it's not too bad. And then I found out that it was half fake. I'm like, come on, man. Even that too, you got to take from us?
Yep. No, that's crazy. But
so someone listening to this, I want them to be able to go into the store and be like, oh, okay, I don't, this is not right.
Yep. Yeah. So proprietary blends, a ton of ingredients isn't good. Another thing you should look out for is new ingredients. A lot of times companies will promote a new ingredient, especially if they're the first one to market with that ingredient, and they're basically doing that, again, just to make the consumer go, oh wow, I've never seen that before. It's new. It must be great. It must work. But a lot of times, new ingredients don't have any research or barely any research backing their use. But companies try to impress consumers with these new ingredients. So, there could be brand new ingredient X comes out. We're the first company to have it. So then consumers go, oh, they're the first ones. I need to go get this, without actually researching that ingredient to make sure it's beneficial to use.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
I would also, first and foremost, because of some of these tactics, it's really on the consumer to take the time to educate themselves. And by educate themselves, I mean educate themselves as to what ingredients work and are beneficial, and then taking that a step further, what dosage those ingredients should be used in. Because another thing some companies will do is what I call the servings trick. They'll list 20 or 30 servings on their bottle, but in reality, the bottle only contains 10 full dose servings. So, a consumer may pick up the bottle and go, oh yeah, there's 20 servings per bottle. But in reality, there's only 10 full dose servings. So the consumer thinks they're getting more than they really are. But that goes back.
Nutrition labels lie like that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
It's nuts. So I guess I'm waiting for this one. So how do you know about protein spiking? Because that's one of the things that I get so nervous about. Well, now that we have our own protein pad, I'm not worried about it anymore. But beforehand, I was always worried about that, because I used to take different ways, and I would literally feel different when I took different whey protein powders, and I thought it was in my head at first. I'm like, no way. And then that whole thing came out with protein spiking on all these different companies, and I'm like, all right, that's got to be true then. So how can someone listening to this find out if that protein powder they're actually using does actually contain, the 25 grams it should, a scoop or whatever it is?
Yeah. Honestly, the only way a consumer could tell really is if there's additional amino acids listed on the label. So sometimes a company might put something as a protein blend, and they may put like whey protein isolate, whey protein consolate, and taurine in the blend. Taurine's an amino acid which, when you're testing, if you were just to test total amino acids or total protein, it would show up in that protein. So some companies may count the taurine towards their protein content when in reality it shouldn't.
Wow.
But that outside of that, honestly, unless there's free-form amino acids listed on the label, a consumer can't really tell. And that's why companies got away with it for so long. I mean, without a lab test, there's no way to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually seen protein powder listed as 35 grams a scoop, and then you turn around and you look at the nutrition label, and it actually says on the nutrition label 25 grams.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's even in plain sight, but people don't really look for it.
Yeah, the majority of consumers on the market wouldn't know. And you figure, again, going back to my comment on how a lot of companies, if they sell a product to someone once, they're okay with that. So it's like if they can trick someone into buying the protein one time and millions of people do it, it's like they're making their money and they don't care.
Yeah. Scary world.
Yeah.
So out of all the time that you've been in the supplement industry, what has been the most unethical thing you've ever seen from a supplement company? I mean, you don't have to mention names, but I'm just curious, like, what happens behind closed doors? I mean, 'cause, like, you think about it, if you work at a restaurant, I'm sure you've seen people do things that they shouldn't be doing behind a restaurant. So I'm just curious what that is like for the supplement industry.
Yeah, luckily the company I worked for was very legit, and they did not do any shady stuff. So anything I've heard has just been hearing it, either from that company or secondhand. But the story I was talking about in the beginning, to where a company was legit putting steroids in their product and selling it, and they knew. And to me, that boggles my mind. It's like, how can you sell a steroid to people who think they're getting like a non-hormonal testosterone booster and be like perfectly okay with it? I'm pretty sure if I heard correctly, that company did indeed get rated by the FDA. So yeah, they probably got caught at this point, but to me, that's because that's serious. I mean, that can lead to a lot of side effects. If someone's taking in a steroid and not knowing,
yeah,
it's like that's just straight up wrong.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot about a lot of these supplement companies getting raided recently, and I think a lot of people they feel like it comes out of nowhere. But I'm sure a lot of these companies are doing stuff like you're saying, and it's kind of an ongoing process. But what's like actually going on behind the scenes where supplement companies are getting raided? Is it like they're getting warnings and then they just don't follow up or listen to it? Like, what's that like?
If a supplement company gets raided, chances are the FDA has tested or knows that their products contain drugs or ingredients that aren't listed on the label or misbranded. So if a company is getting raided, that means the FDA knows your products contain drugs or something that shouldn't be in there. The FDA is not just going to raid someone for fun of it,
I'm just curious, how does the FDA find out?
It could be testing. It could be someone may tell them, like an informant. Or, it could be someone that works at the company doing it that reports it. It could be a lot of ways. Sometimes I've heard of stories of supplement stores testing products and finding stuff out, like finding that products did indeed contain illegal drugs, so they could inform the FDA. Going back to when I was talking about manufacturers get audited by the FDA. So the FDA may have found something at the manufacturer who produced that supplement that was shady, which could in turn lead them to the supplement company themselves. But the problem is there's so many supplement companies out there. A lot of times the smaller level companies are the ones that are doing the shady stuff, and they fly under the radar because, like I said, the bigger you are as a company, the bigger the target is on your back. If you're a smaller company, the FDA, I don't want to say they don't care what you're doing, but they don't have the time to examine everything you're doing.
Yeah.
So these smaller companies are the ones that are getting away with the shady stuff. But at some point, most of them get caught. But for something like that to happen, it starts at the manufacturing level, and the manufacturer themselves often get in trouble as well. There's a manufacturer that I believe just this month there was a news release that they're going to serve jail time for producing a product with an illegal drug in it. Wow. So it's like, these people, they think they're going to get away with this stuff, and they think they're going to make all this money, and they do for a little bit, but at some point they usually get caught.
Scary, man, really is. Yeah. But on the other end of the spectrum, we know that there are great supplement companies out there. So what are some of the best measures you have seen these companies take to produce high quality products, I guess? And how would the consumer know?
I'll use an example.
Aside from doing their own research, obviously.
Yeah. A really good example is De Novo Nutrition. They, I think, a month or two ago, posted their third-party test results for their protein powder that listed every amino acid that's in there and the quantity in it, and it matched perfectly to their label claims. So for a company like, a company to post their protein so to do a true protein test, you need to test both the total protein and the free-form amino acids and peptide-bound amino acids in the product. So it's basically like 3 different tests for, total protein, free-form amino acids, and peptide amino acids, which is very expensive. So for a company to do that and not be afraid to post results, that tells you a lot. So any company who will post their third-party test results, especially for protein, is awesome. So that's a big shout out to De Novo Nutrition for doing that.
Yeah, I think I saw that post, and it was a cool post that he was able to do that. We had Ben on the podcast a while ago. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
And he really loves formulating his products.
Yeah.
He told the story on that podcast that was pretty funny, how he ran downstairs to let someone else taste the blend that he just made upstairs. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and what's crazy is a lot of the reputable companies, or the companies that are trustworthy, are run by people who actually work out and train and follow a diet themselves, because they legitimately care about the quality of the products. It's all these companies, run by people who only view it as a way to make money, are the ones that are cutting corners. So honestly, if you're trying to figure out what companies to support, look at the people who are running the company. It's like, what type of lifestyle are they living? Are they living the fitness lifestyle themselves? It's like, if they are, chances are they want to put quality products in their body.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, the same thing for us. When we formulated our products, we wanted them for our use. I mean, that's the reason why we started them, because everything started coming out with the industry, and we said, you know what, F this. We'll just do our own, and so we know what's in it. We'll get it tested, and we're good to go.
Exactly.
That's kind of like why we did it. So
yeah, no, exactly. Totally agree. Yeah, and like I said, I've been using my product formula for over 3 years before I produced it. So it's like you said, it's like, this is what I want to use.
Yeah.
This is the perfect formula, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, I think, someone who lives a lifestyle and uses their own supplements speaks volumes about their products.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. All right, Derek, so before we wrap this up, is there anything that you think that we might have left out, that we didn't cover, that anyone listening to this can kind of take away to look out for the supplement industry, and anything that goes on in it that we should look out for? Anything, any last nugget or tidbit that we could leave our listeners with?
Yeah. My last little piece is, as consumers, you need to take it into your own hands to educate yourself. There are always going to be shady companies. There are always going to be companies that are looking to take advantage of you and view you just as a dollar sign. So you have to take the time to do research yourself. I recommend going to PubMed.com and also Examine.com to research ingredients and the dosages those ingredients should be used in. So take the time, research ingredients, research the dosages they should be put in, and look for quality products that, list out the exact dosage of every ingredient on the bottle, contain those beneficial ingredients, and make sure that they have the actual dosages they should contain. So yeah, take the time. You have to educate yourself, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a great post. I mean, I think that's with everything in life, though, man. You can't just walk around life blindly. You know, people do that with their investments. Oh, I'm just going to invest in this fund. They have no idea what it is. Like, that's not smart at all. So you have to do your research in everything. You know, if you want to hire a coach, you have to do your research on the coach. It's the same thing with fitness as it is with anything else in life. So, Derek, thank you so much for coming on, buddy. We really appreciate it. Where can our listeners find out more about you? I know we had you on again. You guys could re-listen to episode 97. That was a great one that we had Derek on with. But tell our listeners where they could find you and anything else you got going on that you want them to know about.
PRBreaker.com is my supplement company website. I also have a lot of articles on there. My own social media at Derek Charleboy on both Instagram and Twitter. I probably post the most on Instagram. I'm trying to get into Twitter. That's hard. But first and foremost, visit PRBreaker.com. A lot of good information on there.
Yeah, and Derek's huge, guys. He's a natty, but he's not natty.
Dude, what's funny, I'll end with this story, is on a weekly basis, they have a meeting at my gym to discuss whether I'm natural or not. And I tell them... Go ahead. But I tell them, like if I'm doing like a full upper body like workout, there's some days like if I saw myself, I would not think I'm natural. So I cannot blame them. Like there's some days when I'm pumped up, I'm like, yeah, I would not think I'm natural. So I don't take offense to it at all.
Yeah, no, this guy, he's huge. Derek, how tall are you?
5'10". I'm actually 5'9" and 3/4 because I shrunk a 1/4 inch, but I still say 5'10".
Okay, so 5'10". How much do you weigh?
205. I'm probably at like 8% body fat right now.
Yeah, guys, it's like it's retarded. And to top it all off, Derek, how much do you deadlift?
I hit 675 at the Arnold Classic.
Yeah, so
and that's a stiff bar, not a deadlift bar. I have nothing against deadlift bars, but they add like 40 to 50 pounds to my deadlift. So 675 on a stiff bar.
Yeah. So I'll leave you guys with that note, and you guys can go ahead and follow Derek. Derek, thanks again for coming on, bud. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me as always.
Pete, your turn.
All right, guys. Pete and Anthony with Derek Charleboy, New York Muscle Radio, and we're out.
Enjoyed this episode of New York Muscle Radio? Make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave us a 5-star review, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, New York Muscle Radio.